Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and this is my channel Sandy's Happy Plants. In today's episode, I want to talk about Epipremnum Pinnatum versus Rhaphidophora Decursiva. Yes, so I'm just going to give you a little nerd alert right off the bat here. There's going to be a lot of science talk and scientific names in this episode, so just a little warning. So in the last couple months, I have bought 4 different plants that were labeled as Epipremnum Pinnatum. So one of them I bought at a reputable plant store. Actually, my husband bought it for me, but he bought it at a reputable plant store. It's kind of like a more expensive, high-end boutique plant store here in the city. I'm not going to name names, but he bought it there. And it was labeled as a true Epipremnum Pinnatum. So I thought that was weird at the time because I didn't really know about these plants yet, and or that there was such a hype about them. But okay, so he bought it for me and it was quite expensive. It was $50, which I thought was kind of crazy. It's kind of expensive for a little plant, and I'll show you in a second what it looks like. But so anyway, so he bought that there, and then a week later or so, I found the same plants that were the same size, labeled the same thing, Epipremnum Pinnatum. I found them at Home Depot for $4 each. So I thought, hey, score. So I bought 3 of them, thinking, hey, I hit the jackpot because these are expensive plants. So I bought 3 of them, brought them home. And, I was happy, whatever. So I put the plants away. And then a couple weeks later, I was on a plant group and I was commenting on a person's post because she had a plant that she didn't know what it was. And I commented on it saying, hey, that's Epipremnum Pinnatum or a Dragontail. That's also what they're called. And I'll show you mine. I have the same thing. And I posted a picture of mine. And so this other person commented on it afterwards saying, actually, you both have what's called Rhaphidophora Decursiva. They're actually both not Epipremnum Pinnatum, but Rhaphidophora Decursiva. So I was like, wait a second. Now it's starting to kind of dawn on me now why they might have labeled this as true Epipremnum Pinnatum at the other store. So I decided to go online and do a little research about both of these plants, and let me tell you, there's so much conflicting information, and turns out there's a huge debate online about these 2 plants, and it led me down a big, long rabbit hole of plant research that took forever for me to figure out what's what. And even sellers oftentimes don't even know what they have. They mislabel them, and there are so many different names for both of them. And Baltic blue and Cebu blue and blue form and variegata and skeleton key and on and on and on. So I decided, let's make an episode about this and tell you all about it. So you may ask, what are these mysterious plants and why is there all this confusion about them? So let me start off by showing you my plants. Okay, so first of all, I'll show you the one that was bought at the high-end boutique plant store. So this is it. Okay. It's a pretty plant, as you can see. It's not that big. It came in a plastic nursery pot and then an overpot, and you can see that if I take it out, it says right on here, Dragontail plant, and on the back it says Epipremnum Pinnatum. I don't know if you can see that. All right, so, and there was a little label on it that said true Epipremnum Pinnatum. All right, and this is what it looks like. And this was $50. And then I'll show you one that I got at, I have a bunch of them here, at a hardware store for $4. And that's it. And it's in a slightly different little nursery pot, but it's the same size and it looks pretty much identical. So if I put both of them side by side, you can see that they pretty much look identical. Here's another one that I got at the hardware store, and here's the one that I got at the expensive plant store. So you can see there's not a lot of differences. Actually, they're identical. Yes. Well, they look identical anyways. And they are in different nursery pots. This one is like in a green one, and it doesn't have anything written on it. And the other ones are on, they're in like ones that look like this, and it says grown in Canada, which I doubt. But so I think they probably came from the same source supplier, wherever they originally came from. And then the North American supplier or the Canadian supplier just stuck them in different nursery pots, and one was shipped to a private plant store, and the other ones were shipped to a hardware store. And I've also seen them at Walmart. So I think they all just came from the same base supplier, because I bought them only a week after the other one was bought. So, and they're all the same size. So I figured they probably came from the same place. And mind you, these were all labeled as Epipremnum Pinnatum or Dragontail plant. So let us figure out what we really have here. Is this really Epipremnum Pinnatum, or is it Rhaphidophora Decursiva? Okay, so let's talk about what I found out online about each species of plants and what the differences are. So I'm gonna start with Rhaphidophora Decursiva. And while I'm talking about the differences, or while I'm talking about the features of Rhaphidophora Decursiva, I'll also show you some pictures of the juvenile form of this plant as well as the mature form of this plant. Okay, first of all, a little fun fact. The name Rhaphidophora actually comes from a Greek word, and it's actually two Greek words in one, where Rhaphis means needle and phorius means bearer. So that is needle bearer. So Rhaphidophora means needle bearer, and that refers to the calcium oxalate crystals that are in the plant. And these calcium oxalate crystals, they're irritating to the mouth when you eat it, so don't eat it. and be careful with children and pets that might have a tendency to chew the leaves, because they do cause irritation in the mouth. It's like a burning sensation in the mouth, apparently. I've never eaten it, so I don't know firsthand experience, but don't eat them. And that's what Rhaphidophora means. And Decursiva is also Greek, and it comes from the word decursive, and that means to lean or to hang, because this plant has a tendency to trail. It is native to China, Indochina, and India, and it is in the Aroid or Raceae family. That also includes things like Anthurium, Caladium, Monsteras, and Philodendrons. So that is the plant family it belongs to. They are also sometimes called Monstera decursiva or Pothos decursiva or Scindapsus decursiva, which just adds to the confusion because they get mislabeled all the time. These are just some technical names for other plants that also are in the Raceae family. So I think that that is why sellers sometimes just put that on there instead of Rhaphidophora. And it's just, it's not very helpful if you're a newbie or if you're just buying plants and the plant is labeled something and you have no idea what it is. Yes, it can be confusing. So here are some pictures of juvenile Rhaphidophora decursiva, and you can see that these look very similar to the plants that I have. So these plants in the wild will develop very strong aerial roots that climb up trees, and they can exceed 50 feet in height, with mature plants having dark green shiny leaves that are up to 3 feet long and 1.5 feet wide. Ooh, that's pretty big. And they're also like heavy fenestrated and grow in an alternate pattern on dangling branches, almost looking like fern leaves, which makes them really interesting and beautiful. And also in the wild, they will actually flower. And in the Raceae family, a flower is actually not called a flower, it's called an inflorescence. So an inflorescence is a spadix in the middle, and it has like a boat-shaped spathe around it. So the most common one that people are familiar with is the peace lily. So I'm sure you've all seen the peace lily with the white flowers. And so the white flowers of the peace lily are actually called an inflorescence as well, because peace lilies are also in the Araceae family. So yeah, and so the spadix in the middle actually has tiny flowers that you can't really see. And then the spathe, that's what we see as the flower, the white part or the green part, is actually a modified leaf. So these plants, Rhaphidophora Decursiva, in the wild will bloom and create one of those. As houseplants, they most likely won't do this. Sometimes they will if you have good conditions for it, but most likely they don't. And also as houseplants, they won't get as big. They'll only get around 5 feet in height, as opposed to 50 feet in nature. So that's a little bit more manageable. Also, as houseplants, they most likely won't get as fenestrated as in the wild. And by fenestration, I mean the splitting of the leaves. So the splitting of the leaves is called fenestration. So you see that in monsteras as well, and in some other aroids, you see that as well. And like most other aroids that we keep as houseplants, these are also understory plants, which means they grow underneath the forest canopy in the rainforest or the jungle. So the lighting requirements are the same, bright indirect light or dappled sun. They like to be watered heavily and then dry out before the next watering. And they also like average to high humidity. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward, just like most other Araceae family plants. That is Rhaphidophora Decursiva. Okay, so now for Epipremnum Pinnatum. And again, as I'm talking, I'll show you some pictures of what they look like in their mature form as well as their juvenile forms. Epipremnum Pinnatum is native to Australia, China, Taiwan, Japan, and Malaysia. And it's also an aroid in the Araceae family, just like Rhaphidophora Decursiva. They are also called Dragontail plant, centipede tonga vine, silver vine, taro vine, and in the Philippines it's known as Tibatib. That's fun to say. And let me know if I'm saying that right. I don't speak Tagalog, so if I'm saying it right, let me know in the comments. Tibatib. I like to say that again. Tibatib. So Tibatib is actually what it is more commonly known as. Because I think a lot of people in the Philippines grow it and sell it, and that's what they call it. They are also sometimes called Monstera pinnata or Pothos pinnatus, which just adds to the confusion. And if you look up Epipremnum pinnatum online, a lot of stuff will come up about Baltic blue pothos or Cebu blue pothos as well, and that just totally adds to the confusion as well. And this is the whole thing that sent me down the rabbit hole of research. So basically, Epipremnum pinnatum is the species, and there are subspecies in that species. So Epipremnum pinnatum comes in a blue form. It also comes in a Baltic blue. It also comes in a Cebu blue. It comes in variegated, and it comes in a skeleton key. And I think there's a yellow one as well, marbled or something like that. So as you can see, this is very confusing because these Cebu blues and Baltic blues are actually being sold nowadays as pothos. So they're often labeled as Baltic blue pothos or Cebu blue pothos, but they're actually not pothos. They're actually Epipremnum. So that is very confusing. So Epipremnum pinnatum is actually a really cool plant, and in traditional medicine, it has been used for everything from rheumatoid arthritis to back pain to muscle spasms to toothaches to arthritis to you name it, they use it for it. And actually, recent studies have shown that it has anti-cancer properties, antiviral properties, and antifungal properties. So, wow, it's actually a pretty cool plant. But having said that, it is still an aroid in the Raceae family, and it is toxic, so don't go chewing on it. It still has the oxalate crystals in it, just like Rhaphidophora does. So you don't want to just eat it because it will give you irritation of the mouth and stomach and everything else. And just like Rhaphidophora Decursiva, don't let your kids or pets eat Epipremnum pinnatum either. Not a good idea. So mature Epipremnum pinnatum in the wild can actually reach up to 65 feet tall, and they climb trees and rock surfaces with their strong aerial roots, and their thick, smooth, and glossy leaves can get up to 20 inches long, which is about 1.5 feet, so that's pretty similar to Rhaphidophora. Also similar to Rhaphidophora Decursiva, Epipremnum pinnatum mature leaves also deeply incised with heavy fenestration, but definitely show a different pattern. One thing that's different about these is that they usually have pinholes or white dots along the middle rib of the leaf, and you can see that here in this picture. And when they fenestrate, they also have holes in the leaf that look like windows, kind of like monsteras have. So that is a little bit different from the fern-like look of the Rhaphidophora Decursiva. The juvenile leaves are elliptical to arrow-shaped and do not have any fenestration or holes in them. So in the wild, they also produce an inflorescence, just like the Rhaphidophora Decursiva does. But for Epipremnum pinnatum, the inflorescence looks a little bit different. So the spadix is actually covered with lots of white little flowers, and the spathe is the same boat-shaped spathe. But after these flowers mature on the spadix, they actually turn into red fruit that have like an orange pulpy flesh inside and lots of little brown seeds. And I think people make tea from it, and I think that's probably where lots of the medicinal stuff comes from. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And as houseplants, they probably won't bloom just like most other tropical houseplants because we just don't have the right growing environment for them. I mean, sometimes you might have the perfect growing environment and then they might bloom for you, which is pretty cool. And as a houseplant, they also won't get as big. They'll get pretty much the same 5 to 6 feet, and they won't get as heavily fenestrated as well as a houseplant. And Epipremnum pinnatum, just like Rhaphidophora decursiva, also needs high humidity, and they also like a good watering and then dry out between waterings. And like most other tropicals, they also like bright indirect light. Okay, so that is a lot of information, and you can see why there is so much confusion as to which one is which. So I went online and I looked for some distinguishing features so you can tell which one is which in their juvenile forms. Because they tend to look so much alike in their juvenile forms, I was looking for distinguishing features, and I'll tell you about some of the distinguishing features, and I'll look at my plants as I'm doing that, and let's figure out together what I have here. Okay, so the first distinguishing feature that I found online is that Epipremnum pinnatum has tiny little holes along its midrib of the leaf. So I'm just gonna check over my plant and see if I can see any little holes on this one. And I don't think so. I'll show you the leaves. This is what they look like, and there are no little holes along the midrib. Mind you, these are juvenile plants, so they might not have those yet, but as you can see, none of these have any holes along the midribs. Okay, another distinguishing feature is that Epipremnum pinnatum has rounder leaves that are sparsely split on the sides, whereas Rhaphidophora decursiva has more split leaves, almost like a fern. So let's compare. I'll take this one first. See, this one has a split, almost like a fern, right? I mean, not quite yet because it's little, but that definitely is a split and not a hole. Whereas this one over here has a hole and not a split. It might turn into a split though. These are still pretty young. These ones right here don't have any splits or holes, so I don't know. So that's another distinguishing feature, that Epipremnum pinnatum will have holes, will develop holes in the leaves as fenestration first, and Rhaphidophora decursiva will have splits like a fern leaf. Okay, so this next one is interesting. Apparently in Epipremnum Pinnatum, the leaves will just come out of a nub, like a node. They just simply unfurl from a node, while the leaves, the young leaves of Rhaphidophora Decursiva, come from a cataphyll, so like a leaf sheath. So I'm gonna look at this one, and this definitely has a cataphyll. So you can see that right here. This is definitely, the leaf is definitely growing out of a cataphyll. So what does that tell us? This is probably Rhaphidophora Decursiva, but as you can see, this is an old cataphyll here, and it's about to fall off, and here's a new one forming, a cataphyll or a leaf sheath. This is a sheath that protects the new young leaf while it's forming. And apparently Rhaphidophora Decursiva grows like this, whereas Epipremnum Pinnatum comes out of a nub, which this one here actually kind of looks like. So as you can see here, there's a new leaf coming right here, and that kind of looks like it's coming out of it's just kind of coming out of a nub. It might be a cataphyll, but I don't know. Let's check this one. This one also kind of looks like it's the new leaf right here. You can see also kind of coming out of a nub. Maybe this is Epipremnum Pinnatum. So another difference is that Rhaphidophora Decursiva has the leaves growing scattered along the stem of the plant, and in between the leaves there are several nodes, cataphyll bearing nodes in between the leaves, and the leaves are not distally arranged, they're arranged scattered or kind of in any way they grow. So this kind of does look like this is happening here. You can see the leaves are not all growing from the same point on the stem. This one's coming here, this one's coming there, this one's coming over here. And there are definitely nodes between the leaves. So you can see the nodes between each leaf. And it says about Epipremnum Pinnatum that their leaves grow distally on the stem, and it doesn't have cataphyll bearing nodes. So like in these ones where I showed you before, like it looks like it has a nub coming, and it doesn't really look like a cataphyll, and it is growing distally on the stem. So distally is away from. So distally would be this point right here on the stem. So here you can see it as well. The distal end would be this, and like the longest, the furthest away from the start of the plant, basically. So it does look like these are growing distally on the stem. So might this be Epipremnum Pinnatum after all? It's actually interesting that the plant that came from the high-end boutique plant store actually looks mostly like a Rhaphidophora Decursiva and not like a Epipremnum Pinnatum to me, because it shows, definitely it shows the cataphyll, and it shows that the leaves are growing all over the stem, and it has nodes, and it doesn't have holes, and it basically, I'm pretty sure this is Rhaphidophora and not Epipremnum. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so what's my conclusion here? I think after all this research and all the pictures I looked at, I am pretty sure that all of my plants are actually Rhaphidophora Decursiva and not Epipremnum Pinnatum, which I'm okay with. I'm happy. They're nice plants. I like them, and I can't wait to see what they'll look like when they get bigger. I'm gonna actually right away repot them, and I'm gonna put them all in the same pot, I think, and put them on a moss pole together. And so look out for that video. That's coming very soon. And but yeah, so I'm happy with them. I'm not I'm not upset that they're not Epipremnum Pinnatum. I know there's a huge hype about Epipremnum Pinnatum or Tibatib, which, I mean, I guess it's a cool plant, so that's why people want it, and now I kind of want one too. But I'm just a little bit annoyed about the mislabeling of sellers because it just adds to the confusion. So all of these plants that are being sold as Dragontail plant or Epipremnum Pinnatum are actually not that. So it's a little bit annoying, I find. Okay, so I hope this was a little bit helpful for you, and I hope this will make it a little bit easier for you to distinguish between Rhaphidophora Decursiva and Epipremnum Pinnatum. If you're ever in a position where you want to buy one of them and it's labeled as something, maybe this will help you make a more informed decision if you want to buy that plant or not. And like always, if you have anything to add or any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of you, and I love learning about plants with you together, and I love teaching you what I find out about plants as well. So in the meantime, stay happy, enjoy your plants. See you next time. Bye!